Ladies and gentlemen, a month ago, on August 1st, Trinidad and Tobago observed Emancipation Day with a national holiday. Today, August 31st, we observe Independence Day with another national holiday. Like emancipation, independence is associated with principles of freedom and self-determination. Freedom, by its very nature, is celebratory. It is a cause for joy, optimism, and the expectation of good things to come. So today, on the 46th anniversary of our birth as an independent nation, we in Trinidad and Tobago should be joyful. We should be able to celebrate the many good things we are blessed with. And there is much that we can celebrate. Most important among them are the basic rights and guaranteed freedoms that we enjoy and to which we are entitled. As men and women, free to make our own informed decisions, in a country that is free to determine its own direction and destiny, we are truly blessed and have a lot to be grateful for. But, like emancipation, no celebration such as this should pass without some kind of reflection. And one of the most and very important things we must reflect upon is the extent to which we as a nation are fulfilling the mandate of a free and independent state. Are we fulfilling the most basic mandate of our independent nation, which is to ensure that its citizens are free and able to make the choices that will determine how they will live their lives and how they will raise their children? The answer seems simple enough, because any response in a negative would take us back more than 200 years and back to the days of slavery. But to come up with the answer, we absolutely must pay careful attention to the things that threaten our freedoms and our ability to live independent lives. It is worth therefore recalling the story of Mama Harriet Ross Tubman, who was a black American born in 1820. She grew up as a slave and eventually became an agent for the Underground Railroad, which was a clandestine escape route used to smuggle slaves to freedom in the North and into Canada. Towards the end of her years, Mama Harriet commented, "I freed thousands of slaves. I could have freed thousands more if they had known they were slaves." 95 years after her death in 1913, Mama Tubman's concerns remain as valid as they were during her lifetime. While the mode may be different, Mama Tubman would easily recognize the many modern-day methods that threaten our freedom and true independence. How many of us also recognize these threats? First, it was one every few weeks, then became one every week or so, then one or two per week, eventually one per day. Now, murders and other violent crimes that keep us locked behind our iron bars inside our homes occur en masse, several at a time. They deny us the freedom to enjoy the rewards of our hard work, even to walk the streets without fear. And what about the tens of thousands of our young people who are kept in a state of never-ending poverty and hopelessness because our government finds it politically expedient to keep them permanently dependent on handouts? How many of us recognize the threat to our freedom and independence that is caused by our citizens' inability to earn and provide for themselves, or having to rely on the so-called generosity of the state for a mere pittance? Add to this a Prime Minister and his government that are hell-bent on taking away many of our hard-fought rights and liberties. How many of us recognize the threat to our independence and right to make our own decisions when the Prime Minister and his government flex their muscles to bring down and destroy all and everyone they perceive as their political opponents? Don't forget the former Chief Justice and Stephen Williams, whom the Independent Police Service Commission recommended for the job of Commissioner of Police. What does it say about our independent institutions? How many of us recognize the threat to citizens' independence that occurs when the Prime Minister and his government flex their muscles to deny citizens their just dues after many years of committed hard work? The examples of Marlene Coudray, Devant Maraj, Senior Superintendent Dennis Graham, and a long list of others come to mind. How many of us recognize the threat of our personal independence when the Prime Minister and his government erode our economic gains by enriching their friends and closest supporters at our expense? How many of us recognize the threat to our independence through informed decision-making by the Prime Minister and his government refusing to answer questions in Parliament about how our hard-earned tax dollars are being spent? How many of us recognize the serious threat to our personal independence if the Prime Minister and his government have their way and enact constitutional amendments that would allow interference in the work of the DPP to decide who to prosecute and who not to prosecute? And still, I have not yet mentioned the most recent and perhaps most serious threat to our independence, as individuals and as a nation. That is a threat posed by a Prime Minister who, without our notification, let alone consent, engages in secret discussions with foreign territories about a political union. Not only that, he goes further to agree to a political union, then announces to us that it is a done deal and our independent nation will be a signatory to this union. And what is worse than all of that is that when asked to consult with us, the people of Trinidad and Tobago, his bold-faced response is that it is not the tradition of his party to hold a referendum. What that translates to is that it isn't the style of the PNM, which he leads, to seek your input on very important issues, not even those that directly impact your independence and that of our beloved country. Remember, a general election was held in Trinidad and Tobago less than a year ago, and there wasn't even a word then about any political union with foreign territories. All the time, though, discussions would have had to have been taking place for agreement to be announced less than a year after the election. The question then is, why didn't the Prime Minister indicate during the election campaign that he was holding talks on the issue of political unity with other states? The answer must be that he knew it wouldn't sit well with the population. Ladies and gentlemen, Mama Harriet Tubman would have recognized these serious threats. The question is, do we? And if we do, what are we prepared to do about it? Britain's decision in 1962 to grant our independence wasn't out of the goodness of its heart. It was for the one reason and one reason only: the unrelenting pressure brought to bear upon the British by our visionary leaders who were adamant that we had what it takes to make our own decisions and determine our own destiny. That was 46 years ago. The issue that is relevant in 2008 is, what are we prepared to do today to protect our freedoms and ensure that our freedoms are preserved? It is probably worth noting the words of Frederick Douglass, who was an American editor, orator, author, statesman and reformer. In a powerful statement, he had this to say: "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what any people will quietly submit to, and you have found out the exact measure of the injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them. And these will continue till they are resisted with either words or blows, or with both. The limits of any tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress." As we all observe this beautiful occasion of Independence Day 2008, let us all consider how much injustice and wrong we will allow the tyrants to impose upon us. And while we celebrate our many blessings, let us not forget the many things that today threaten these freedoms, and let us resolve to resist them. Thank you.